Welcome to the Welsh Woodman workshop, and in tonight's project we're going to be using this large piece of oak in the background to help us turn a table lamp. Now this is a bit of an experimental sort of project, as I buried that piece of oak in a pile of spalted shavings, so essentially shavings that had a fungus growing through them, hoping that the oak would take that fungal growth. And it's sort of worked, I think. So we're going to see as we turn the wood, we hopefully should reveal these beautiful black spalted lines coming through. Let's have a closer look at the piece itself, and we'll talk through what we're going to do with it, and we'll get them on the lathe and start turning. Hope you enjoy. We've got the crown of the tree. So essentially we've got 5 branches growing off there. We're going to be cutting these back. But we can see that the oak's definitely taken some sort of fungal growth with these on the edge of the tree. Hopefully that'll translate then into those black lines growing throughout the tree. So it should be quite pretty if we caught this just right. Sometimes what can happen is we can leave it too long and the wood's just a piece of rotten wood and not too good for anything. So we're going to trim it down here, make a nice sort of square shoulder that we can mount this to the lathe, and this is going to be the top of the lamp. And I'm going to trim some of these sort of where the limbs would have been off, just to make it a little bit easier to turn into a round ball. So with 6 months on, I've let this piece of oak dry out a little bit more. So that may be my my mistake, because it's going to be too hard to turn, but we'll see. So we're going to just sort of true this up and turn this lamp profile from this now. I've got a faceplate on the back with big chunky sort of metal sheet screws into it, so it should hold sufficiently. Right, let's give this a go. So we're going to be starting with a Celtic bowl gouge, and we're going to true up the face of the lamp. So I'm going to be working nice flat face. You can see I'm doing some draw cuts, remove material, rubbing the bevel of the tool to that grind angle against the surface so I can get it nice and smooth. I'm starting to do some push cuts now. I've got a lot of air log with this because it's unbalanced, and I want to try and create a nice solid shape. As you can see from the stop there, that we've got a lot of material to remove to get this into a nice round shape. So just begin push cuts, riding the bevel of the tool. When I'm hitting that air log, pushing nice and gently, not taking too much to avoid a catch. The flute of the gouge then is nice and open when I'm hitting that air log section, whereas it's less likely to pull the wing of the tool round and you get a nasty dig in that way. So it's going to true this up until I get a nice sort of round profile. It's going to take me a little bit of time, just again facing off the top to get a nice flat sort of reference point I can start establishing my shape from. As soon as I've got a flat top, then I can start working at these wings flying around. So if you look at the top profile of the lamp, you can see it's really unbalanced. So I'm hitting the air log a lot at that time, so just going to take my time with it, push nice and lightly, be patient, and eventually I'm going to get a shape emerging that I like, hopefully. So you see the flute of the gouge again is pretty open as we're feeding it into the air log section to avoid that catch. It's more into the round now, establishing more of a shape that I want to go for. This is the exciting bit for me, is coming up with some creative shapes and hopefully some aesthetically pleasing shapes. So just doing some draw cuts now across the top, creating like a little rim that I want the light fixture to go into, and just doing some shear scraping cuts to really blend this hard oak in. Now the tool I'm going to be using next is a negative rake scraper, which has got 2 different angles on it, and this is brilliant for sort of blending in my bowl gouge cuts. So I'm presenting it nice and flat, cutting along the centre line with this. It's really vital we do that, and I'm getting a nice smooth blended in curve. Now looking at the shape itself, I need to blend in the bottom, so I've gone back over to the bowl gouge to do this. Now the bowl gouge, you can't see the gouge itself, but you can still see the shape emerging from the top. Now it's taken me years to learn that, not to just look at the cutting edge of the tool itself, but to look at the top profile of the bowl or lamp, whatever you're turning at the time, and that can be really helpful in helping you get a shape that you like overall. So I'm quite happy with that overall profile. So the curves, so this is where the light fixture is going to be coming through. I've got some natural flats and some of the little rotten bits I've dealt with a wire brush, but the light sand has done the job. So I'm going to put Probably just a couple of coats of oil directly onto this rather than sealing the grain, because it's pretty punky, and we'll see how it goes from there. We can always add some sort of wax and other things over the top. I'm going to be using a Danish oil to coat this over. A couple of coats of that should do the job. So we're going to add a coat and let it dry in between. This is the fun bits where the grain starts to pop out. So I've only really sanded on this to 240 grit, and hopefully that should be enough. So we haven't got any tool marks that are visible and things like that. This is going to absorb quite a lot, I think. So it's the next day, and I've put a couple of coats of oil on this, let it soak in, buffed it up in between, and I'm getting this nice smooth sort of finish that's really accentuating the grains without it being shiny. So next thing we're going to need to do is bore a hole through the entire thing so that we can feed the electric wires through. In order to make a centre mark, I'm going to be using a little point tool I've made. You can see it's just a ground to a point on one end, flat on the top. And this is from an old carpentry chisel. And I'm just going to hold that up to the centre point, feed it into the centre. Now that's got a cone profile in there, so it's going to take the drill bit nice and easily as it comes in. The drill bit I'm going to be using is an 8mm drill bit, and that sort of corresponds with the size of the wire we need and the little brass ferrule I'm going to have to put into here. So I've got a long bore drill bit, so on this really long shaft. Got it into my electric drill, so I'm not going to be using the drill itself, but it just makes it easier to hold. And I find that by holding the drill upside down, it just a nice grip for it. So I'm going to turn it on, nice low speed. I need to bring my tool rest up so it's right along the centre line with this 8mm drill. So the key with this is push forward, come back out to clear those shavings. So pushing in, clearing out the shavings. Remember, this is end grain oak we're drilling into, so it's pretty tough stuff. Just need to keep on going so we can drill out most of this. In and out till we get all the way into the bottom of this. Now I'm going to show you a more traditional tool of how we could do this. So a more traditional way of sort of coring this out is to use these boring tools. So we've got like a mini gouge on the end essentially of a long bar. We'll hold it in there. Normally these go through the tailstock, a hollow tailstock, but you can use them freehand like this. Exactly the same principle as with the drill. So pushing in and hollowing out. And we're going to do that until we get right down to the bottom. Right, so the hole has been bored all the way through. I've marked off with my end of my screws are, and I've given myself about an extra centimetre. So I'm going to mark that on so I can start my parting off lines. We've got a clear line then. Now when I come to parting this off, I want to do a slight undercut. That's going to allow the lamp to sit flat on the surface. Going to be using a parting tool to help me to do this. Right on that line. Coming across half the width of the tool, and that will allow me to get a bit of a relief cut in. Let's see if we can zoom in a bit more for you. So half the width of the tool. Starting to angle my tool now. Now this edge, I want a bit of a soft edge there, so it's a bit sharp at the moment. Anything with a sharp edge is more likely to chip over time. So I'm just going to cheat. I'm going to be using the side of my parting tool, a bit like a scraper. And it puts a slight chamfer on that edge. So by using the parting tool there, saves me from changing over tools. It saves me time. Dog, out of the way. Okay, so there's the sort of undercut we're getting, which will help this sit flat on the table. It'll also make it really easy to connect a wire fastening underneath. So we're going to do that next. With the wiring process, we're going to be using a wire kit that I bought on Amazon. Now, with any sort of electrical work and wiring, just need to be really competent with it. If you're not sure, just get a qualified electrician to wire it up for you, especially if you're going to be selling this on. Otherwise, your sort of product liability can really come into play. So I'm just going to thread this through, so we've got plenty of wire on the top. And you notice by having that undercut there, we're going to need to carve in a little groove so that this will feed out properly, and we're going to do that in the direction we think this lamp will look best in. Right, wiring this baby up then. So we've got this little brass section there that we're going to need to screw into the top, and that'll securely fasten this sort of fitting then to the top of the wooden stem. And we've also got, because this is a metal one rather than plastic, a little earth sink there to earth the product with. Take that off, whack these through. Oh, and that's a really tight fit in there then. That's really good, happy with that. So where we want that wire to fit through, we're going to be using a full round file and filing that into this profile. It's the easiest way of doing it. Now, with any lamps sold in the UK, need to withstand more than £5 pressure as you're pulling the cord. And so essentially what should happen is, if we trip over this cord, this should pull the whole lamp over rather than pulling the electrics out. Now, the easiest way of sort of doing that is to get a mechanical fixing. Now, these are really handy and easy way of doing it. You can get them from like a plug socket. Where essentially, after we file this little groove, we're going to be screwing this down, and that's going to sort of mechanically fasten this to the bottom of the lamp, which will cause this to sort of pass the safety regs then in this country. So just finish this wiring this up and finding the groove in. So you see how that groove comes through. Now we've got a little mechanical fastening there, so that's making this really strong. So essentially that's there. It's got to take £5 of pressure, and it should pull the lamp off rather than pull the electrics out to make it nice and safe. The shade itself, I'm not very good at choosing lamp shades. I'm sure the mother-in-law will choose another one if she's not happy with it. But we're going to put this on top, add in the little tight fastening, and I've gone with an LED bulb, and it's got one of these cool colour changing little remotes. And I just thought it'd be quite nice for a bit of mood lighting. Then you can cycle through the different colours with the mood lighting, which is pretty cool. So just to show you in the dark then, so we've got these different colours coming through. We can have these different mood lightings, which makes it really cool, nice atmospheric, and we can go for the different colours then. You can have the reds, depending what mood you're in. And you've also got the white, and we can increase or lower the light intensity with that white as well, which is pretty cool. And with the on-off switch, we can just decide to turn it off or on anywhere in the room, which is another really cool feature, as well as having a nice ability to turn it on and off with the little switch there. So there we have it, one completed lamp design, all ready to go. Now I think what I really like about this is all of these sort of knots and the sort of rotten bits coming through. Didn't quite get those black lines as I was hoping for with the rotting process, so that trying to get it to spault, but it still looks pretty cool overall. Now I think if I was to make this one again, what I'd probably do is refine the shape a little bit more. So have it a little bit thinner, so tapered down towards the bottom to give it a bit more of an elegant curve, as I think it looks a bit chunky at the moment. Be interested to hear your sort of views in the comments. We always really appreciate your comments. And thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe by hitting the link there, so that really helps me out in getting more videos like this your way. Now next week's video is going to be going back to doing another bowl turning video, and it's a really special bowl I'm turning for next week, and I'll give you some channel sort of updates and a little bit of exciting news in next Friday's video. So I hope you have a wonderful night. Thank you so much for watching. Diolch yn fawr. Nos da.